I'm cold, so I have on my hat today. So yeah, so this is very emotional for me. Um, I've said this in the write-up for the funeral that yes, I think that life is complicated. I'm an activist. I want to see everything burn. However, also, to be honest with you, like the WMD thing is a real thing, and like normally I'm like, yo, burn that down. Like that's horrible. He's a war crime. He's a war criminal. But at the same time, it's like, well, let's really look at this, right? Like, and I think that, like the Democratic Party, I'm gonna drag them down too. We don't really get to see fully. Some of my nails are not done. Get over it. I was like, oh no, I'm so busy running my two businesses. Black issues, namely being one, and the other one is my diversity company that like sometimes nails don't get done. So we don't really get to see fully like they're not good at selling themselves. You know what I'm saying? So that we get excited and actually know who they are and like why we should support them, right? So with the Democratic Party, like what is this Biden bill? Build Back Better, like like do it better, do it more. Obamacare, same thing, roll out. And the same thing with Colin. Like for people to have the bitter aftertaste just of the weapons of mass destruction, I'm like, no. Like there's so much more to Colin Powell than simply, oh, he this is cutting and pasting the link so I can send it to a few people. Then war criminal. Like no, like he started what is it, America First, to empower the youth throughout the country, community service organizations. He was heavy in AmeriCorps. He was on the board of Howard University. And what really doesn't get mentioned is the Colin Powell Center for Policy Study. So, I just feel like there's so much more that could be said and done about who he is and what he's done than to simply be so reductive as to only view him through the narrow lens, really, of weapons of mass destruction. And again, like this is not to marginalize the impact of going to war in Iraq. Again, horrible war crimes were happening. Blood on his hands, as with anybody who joins the military, fighting for America, right? Like, so, and again, the pushback, oh my God, war, yeah, I mean, for us to think that these things are so pure and isolated as we're fighting for freedom, that's not the case. There's the military-industrial complex. There's a lot of money being made, right? So look at Blackwater, right? So the notion that war is this pure thing, fighting for justice and freedom, I will push back against that, even as I guess enjoy the spoils of war, of freedom from an American standpoint, right? Like, so I don't know who's speaking.
And no one dies to himself.
And no one dies to himself. So let me just frame that as we listen.
We live unto the Lord.
I think this is the same pastor who presided over Meghan and Harry's wedding.
We die unto the Lord. Whether we live, therefore, or die, we are the Lord's. Blessed are the dead who die in the Lord.
I think it's loud enough.
Even so saith the Spirit, for they rest from their labors.
I'm just trying to text somebody the link, but yeah. So I had a fellowship through him, and again, I'm very careful and mindful not to make the procession of Colin Powell's funeral be like single-minded, like I benefited from it, so y'all get over yourselves. Like it's not I'm not saying that either. What I am saying is that there was more to him. There's more to him than simply
Good
stating,
afternoon.
you know,
My name is
what
Randy
was your
Hollis, and I'm
message?
the Dean of Washington National Cathedral. And on behalf of Mary Ann Buddy, the Bishop of the Diocese of Washington, and Michael Curry, the presiding Bishop of the Episcopal Church, welcome. Welcome to this house of prayer for all people. It is indeed an honor for us to host this service for Colin Powell. To Mrs. Powell, Michael, Ann, Linda, and the entire Powell
So
family,
I knew Linda pretty well.
our hearts are with you and with all those
We
across
connected
our
several
country
times because she's an
and
actress.
indeed
She's in
around
the world of arts.
who grieve
So
the loss of this great American
really, really
leader
sad.
and patriot.
Um,
Today we give Colin Luther Powell back to the
my
God
biggest
who
memory
gave
of her
him to
is
us.
that we watched
While
the
we
hotel
mourn
one
his
and we
death,
sat
our
next to each
faith
other
tells
and
us
talked about
that
it.
there is
with the
indeed
Powells,
life beyond the grave,
Colin's
and that
daughter,
God never lets us go.
So again,
So as the old prayer says, we gather to give thanks for all the goodness and courage that have passed through
thank you all for
Colin
watching and
Powell's
tuning
life
in.
into the lives of others.
For some reason, I'm really cold in my own apartment.
For his loyalty to his
My nose is
country
running.
and his love of the good, and for all those noble qualities of mind and soul that endeared him to so many. He lived a life of service.
Welcome. Thank you.
And he was a great blessing to
share
all
a
who knew
comment,
him.
your thoughts.
In the words of St. Paul, he fought the good fight and he kept the faith. May the God of love bless him and keep him now and always.
Thank you for the love. Love you, Black. So, this is a lot of pomp and circumstance. But at the same time, I think it's valuable. It's part of our American fabric. Hey, Naima. Grand Rising, middle of the day. I know you have your less than an hour break, right? So you squeeze me in. I love you, Black. We still need to talk about the curriculum. So let's do it this weekend. The week is crazy. Yes, not all my nails are done. It's a travesty. Let's see. Tell me how you're doing, what your thoughts are. Tell me what your thoughts are about this ceremony. So it's still very European. Yeah, let's definitely connect this weekend. I'm so excited to do that with you. Such honor. Thank you for saying yes. But again, this is very European in terms of the procession, the military, they have the whole drumming thing at the beginning. But I do think that, hold on, I'm just trying to text a few people, let them know I'm actually doing this. And I'm cold in my own apartment, even though I have all the heat. And my nose is running. But yeah, people can start to share their thoughts about why is this not at the Baptist church where the tambourine? Yeah, this is very European. That's what I was saying before in terms of the fact that this is the military, this is America, so it's very white centric. They did talk about how Colin Powell is Caribbean. He's of Jamaican heritage, and that he loved Calypso. They did shout out Calypso. Thank you very much. They talked about Bob Marley, and they were playing Three Little Birds by Bob Marley, but again with the military choir, or not even choir, it was a military orchestra or battalion, baton, something. Again, it's very European. The European mindset of like, let's gather around all the instruments to play some music as they go to war, but then we're going to do this very somber, strict. The music to me is just as regimented as the military. It's just like left, right. The music's very stiff as well. So I feel like I'm like a commentator, like extra, but like I'm extra Black with my commentary. So yeah, welcome everyone to the Colin Powell Funeral. I had a fellowship with Colin Powell, so I got to know him. I'm not going to say like we were best friends, but like, yeah, I met him several times, talked to him, listened to him.
and acknowledge.
And I feel like the legacy of Colin Powell is not fully portrayed in the media because he was doing a lot more than he ever really bragged about. Like, he was not that, like, oh, like, you're saying, like,
your granddaddy.
I'm muted for a second.
It is.
You know, these people aren't on Instagram bragging, you know, look at me, I this, I that, I got this, I got that, I took this picture, look at me. And I'm like, what the fuck are you actually doing? I spit. Right? So, like, somebody like Colin Powell, he's so goddamn humble, most people don't even know. They don't know that he did America First, that he was sitting there empowering community organizing and community empowerment. They don't know. He started a whole nonprofit for that. They don't know. He started the Colin Powell Center for Policy Study at his alma mater, City College. And City College was one of the only free, at that time, free institutions for mostly immigrants and people of color in New York City to actually access a 4-year high quality degree like he did. So he graduated from City College, not Harvard, and it was like, you know what? I'm going to build my entire institute, just like the Kennedy Center, the Kennedy School of Government, right? He was like, no, I'm going to lend my name to my institution, to my alma mater, and then empower whole generations of City College alumni to actually understand power and policy from the inside. He started the Colin Powell School. Again, the media is not talking about this. So it's going to be conflated with, you know, he had the right stuff. He was like, he was black, but he resonated enough whiteness, right? In terms of just on the face of it, respectability, politics, and the suit and the tie, and he knew how to talk and walk and shake hands, and yeah, military guy, right? Like, that's going to be the story. Then the other story, the subplot of that story is going to be the weapons of mass destruction, you know. But what isn't told, and the reason why they love him so much, right? What isn't also told is what he was doing behind the scenes. You know? So again, when I look at these Instagram influencers, look at me! I took a picture! Look at all my pictures! Look, I got the bag! You know, when I look at all these Instagram influencers, I'm just like, what the fuck? Shut the fuck up. Like, you're not doing it, signifying nothing. You're not doing anything. Right? So if some people are getting like 4,000 hits for something that really has nothing to do with society, not really impacting, not empowering, not uplifting, not informing. And then you have somebody like Colin Powell who did all this stuff most people don't know. Still don't know the day of the funeral. And we're black.
Follow him or her anywhere.
So thank you all for watching and tuning in. Tell me who you are. Tell me where you're watching from.
Out of curiosity, and somebody who would follow him and her just to see where the heck he's going. Asked General Powell one day what he learned in the Army. What's the most important thing he learned? He said, well, most important thing he learned was in ROTC when he learned about the first general order, which cautions a sentry to take charge of this post. All government.
This is like what is it called? Mesmerism. When they start talking about the military, they love it. All the whites, they love it. So
the PX, which was warm, a lot of friendly faces going by. Yeah, you did that. That was part of your duty. But how about the motor pool?
That's why they froth at the mouth at Colin Powell, because he represented all this
part of your duty
military
too.
shit.
You don't get to pick and choose what you like better. And he extended it to people. He would say, I extend the first general order to people. So we're all human. Some people we like better than others. But if you're in charge, you can't show it. And Colin would always end that comment by saying, we all need to treat everyone with a little bit more kindness than we think they deserve.
True.
Because we don't know what's going on.
What they're going through.
In their lives.
That's true.
You know, I'm going to quickly throw out 3 anecdotes for you. This is a celebration.
So,
it's a celebration
Richard
of a life. I want to kind of
Armitage,
fill that picture
deputy
of Colin
at State
Powell out a little
Department.
bit.
Okay, so
And I'm
this
going
is
to try
military
to tie together his
government.
sense of humor, his insatiable curiosity, and his comfort in his own skin. One day I was upstairs in the Pentagon, 2 floors above then Chairman Powell, and he buzzed me and asked, could I come down? Sure. I'll be right down. So I rolled down the 2 flights of stairs into his office. Nancy Hughes, who was at the door, she said, "Go right on in. They're expecting you." Well, I wasn't expecting them, but I went on in, and there was a boombox playing. There was a circle of very tall gentlemen that also included General Powell. It was the Harlem Globetrotters, and the boombox was playing Sweet Georgia Brown, and they were passing them all around. And I'm not unfamiliar with a basketball court, like when I could really walk. I would say run, but really walk. So they asked me to join the circle. I did. But every time one of the Globetrotters would pass the ball to Secretary Powell, he'd fumble it. He'd drop it. It would fall to the floor. So finally, one of the Globetrotters switched off the boombox and said, "Bro P, what's up with you? We throw you the ball and you drop it." And without a grin, without a grimace, he looked straight at that Globetrotter and said, "While you were out shooting hoops, I was stealing hubcaps." Globetrotter said that was all right. Flicked the box back on. It was Sweet Georgia Brown time again.
Y'all heard the story?
I said he had an insatiable curiosity. Nothing made Secretary Powell happier than to sneak away from his security detail. Does that sound familiar to anyone here? And when you do it in the State Department, it would generally be followed by a call to me on the cell saying, "I'm free. I broke out." And then he'd tell me where it was, because it wouldn't be long before security would be going crazy.
Sorry.
Well, this day found him down in the parking lot of the
tea.
State Department. It's a huge underground parking lot. And he walked up to an attendant who, by the way, I'm not sure knew that this was the Secretary of State. And the Secretary said, "I've always wondered something. How do you figure out who gets in the front row or the second row, which means you can egress roughly on the time you thought you were going to egress, and who gets in the back row? Because that'll take you 40 minutes. I said, "It's very easy." He said, "People come in and say, 'Good morning,' or 'It's snowing out there,' or 'Traffic is bad today.' We put them in the front row, the second row. If they come in with a window wound up, won't look right or left, just right on past, 40 minutes, and then they can get out. They'll be in the back row." This nugget was so enlightening to Secretary Powell that he made bold to ask about certain members of the hierarchy in the State Department. You'll have to guess. I'm not going to tell you who. The majority of them got through with first and second row, but a couple actually ended up time and again in the back row. Well, the third anecdote that I was going to say had to do with Secretary Powell, General Powell, Colin, CP, however you know him, as Secretary of State. And visiting Foreign Minister from Sweden, Anna Lindh, was in. So she came in with her entourage to the Secretary's very well-appointed office. And she knew of Secretary Powell's affection for ABBA. And she knew of Secretary Powell's affection for Volvos. So she opened up a full CD set of ABBA and presented it to
He's
her.
obsessed with ABBA, by the
Colin
way.
immediately went down on one knee.
Thank you all for tuning in.
Mamma Mia.
Tell me your thoughts on Colin
To a
Powell.
very amused foreign minister from Sweden and to a gobsmacked U.S. delegation who had never seen anything like it. Well, our tastes in music were not very similar, except for one with Colin's and mine, except for one.
ABBA.
Every Saturday afternoon at 5 o'clock, we would listen to WPFW in Washington. This is Pacifica Radio. This is People's Radio.
Oh, sure.
Don't tell anybody
Activists.
who investigates us for security clearances. Because
Yeah,
this is
Pacifica
Liberation
Radio is subversive.
There was a show at 5 o'clock in the afternoon hosted by Mr. Von Martin.
Wow, Pacifica Radio is going to be so happy.
And that's one thing the two of us really like, whether it's Bob Marley and the Wailers, and we'll hear more about that later, Iggy Marley, the Swallow, and a number of people. So we really had great one music taste. Colin loved the church. He loved the ceremony. He loved the liturgy. He loved the high hymns. This made him extremely happy. And as poor Alma knows, every day at 7 or 7:05, I would call him or he'd call me. We'd get our days ready, except on Sunday. On Sunday, I'd call at 9:30. And he would answer the same way every Sunday. He said, oh yes, I was in church, and I want you to know I'm in the state of grace. And I would answer the same way every Sunday. Home, if you're not in the state of grace, who among us is? And that was every day for almost 40 years, the same opening remarks. Well, I grew up in the South, and my taste in hymns is a little different from Secretary Powell's. And my favorite hymn is one by the Reverend F.C. Barnes. He
Well,
sings
that's
it with his
dope.
wife.
They also
And it's
mentioned the
called Coming
boule
Up
on here,
on
which
the
I
Rough
found
Side of the
fascinating. We'll talk about that
It's
night.
got 3 verses and 2 choruses. I'm just going to submit you to the 3rd verse. This old race will soon be over. There'll be no more race to run.
Mm.
And I will stand before God's throne. All my heartaches will be gone. I'll hear my Savior say, welcome home. Be real quiet. Listen real carefully. And you might hear our Savior say, Colin, welcome home. And here's your starry crown. And finally, it's the message to Alma and the kids. He's a
Linda.
very busy father, very busy husband, huge responsibilities. As I say, I've talked to him once, sometimes 15 times a day
Wow.
for 40 years. Never in 40 years do I recall his ever failing to either start or end his day by telling what Alma was doing, what Michael and Jane were doing, what Linda was doing, what Anne Marie and Francis were doing, what the grandkids were doing. And the reason I mention this is because I think as a husband, as a father, as a friend, I don't think we share often enough how we really feel with our family. Sometimes I think we take it for granted. But I want you to know that he didn't take it for granted. Every morning or evening, I heard about it. So God bless Colin, God bless the Powell family, and God bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, welcome. You know, I think this is going to be a very interesting national broadcast that's going to pull from his military life, his government life, and maybe even, like I said, like, you know, he was mentoring people like me, you know, who are activists, who are on the community organizers. So, you know, very rare do you get
President
someone
Biden,
that can pull and
President
have so many
Obama,
different people from
President
various
Bush,
different sectors,
Secretary Clinton,
like Madeline
distinguished
Albright,
leaders and guests. My
speak
heart
so
is
highly
sad,
of you,
for I
right?
have lost a friend.
So he was
Alma,
military,
Michael, Linda, and
she's
Anne-Marie, the
politics.
remarkable Powell family. I'm grateful to you for inviting me to share my thoughts in this hour of celebration and remembrance.
Mm-hmm.
In 1993, when I began serving as America's ambassador to the UN, General Colin Powell was already in his final months as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. At White House meetings, I came equipped with a yellow pad. He brought a laser pointer and an array of multicolored slides. I wore a pin. He wore a lot of medals. I was a mere mortal female civilian. In the wake of Operation Desert Storm, he was the hero of the Western world. On policy, the general and I didn't always reach the same conclusion.
Y'all argued fiercely.
He would later recount that one of my comments almost gave him an aneurysm. Although we were the same age, he and I were shaped by different experiences and had different ideas and represented different departments.
Fess up.
But over the past quarter century, we also became very close friends, an experience I know that I have in common with many of you. The reason is that beneath that glossy exterior of warrior statesman was one of the gentlest and most decent people any of us will ever meet. As I grew to know him, I came to view Colin Powell as a figure who almost transcended time, for his virtues were Homeric: honesty, dignity, loyalty, and an unshakable commitment to his calling and word. These were the same traits he sought tirelessly to instill in the soldiers under his command, the diplomats he led, the colleagues with whom he worked, the readers of his books, the audiences that flocked to his speeches, the students of the Powell School for
Boom!
Civic and Global Leadership, and the thousands of young people
So
who
they did
benefited from
shout
the
it out.
America's Promise
She's
Alliance
right.
that Alma and he
She's
championed.
basically eating crow. Like,
He
I
relished
did not
the
have this impact that he
to
had.
connect
See?
with other generations.
Boom.
And it's always
What
the
did I
right
say?
time, he told us, and I quote, to reach out to someone who's wanting to look up, and to each in our own way to help put that fellow American on the road to success. A first-rate listener, and in government the ultimate team player, Colin was nevertheless always true to himself. He could not be moved by any threat or tempting promise to depart from what he felt was right. He had a code instilled by his immigrant parents, honed by Army tradition, and nurtured by more than half a century of marriage. He was also guided by a conscience that, unlike many, never slept. Colin was incredibly cool. People in public life tend
Yeah,
to
she's fangirling because
hyperventilate.
she knows she ain't got that
We open our
impact and they're the
mouths
same
and
age.
the superlatives just gush forth.
See?
Greatest, worst, the biggest deal ever, the biggest disaster ever, as if each issue offered a choice between utopia and perdition. Over the decades, I sat in many meetings with Colin where I could almost hear his eyes roll. When it was his turn to speak, he was brilliant at bringing over-the-moon claims down to earth and distilling what truly mattered from what did not. His effectiveness was magnified by his lack of interest in racking up partisan debating points or improving how macho he could be as a negotiator.
Hi,
He
Robert.
cared only about achieving results,
Thank
and
you.
somehow, through the strength of his personality, he made pragmatism charismatic. Colin Powell's legacy of service to the country he loved will long survive his passing, from rescuing fellow soldiers while in combat to presiding over the
Yeah, these
rollback
influencers
of
that ain't
aggression
actually
in the Middle
influencing.
East, to orchestrating
Like, what does this
after
even
9/11,
mean? Like,
a global
Colin Powell's
alliance
an
against
influencer.
Al-Qaeda,
You know what I'm saying? Like,
to
look at this.
modernizing the
You know what
practice
I'm saying?
of
Some of these people have
diplomacy.
millions of
He
followers. Are
devoted
they
the
going to be able to
full
have
measure of
this
his energy
when they
and
die?
skills to advancing
Like,
national interests
our world
and
is
to the
fucked.
common
I'm like,
good.
this makes no sense to me. This is an actual influencer.
And he did so in the right way, which is why the Army loved him, why his adversaries respected him, and why within the State Department he was far more popular than his predecessor. I remember the day his nomination
This
as
is what I'm talking
Secretary
about.
of State was
Templates for
announced,
actual
because
humanity.
Colin drove himself, having escaped his service,
Mhm.
over to my house so we could begin planning a smooth transition. Amid the rancor over the 2000 election, he was determined
Even
to set
Condi
the
Bryce
right
ain't gonna have
example.
this.
There's a photo taken a few days later which shows him arriving at the State Department, and we're laughing and on the cusp of a warm embrace. I treasure that picture because it captures our relationship and had grown from one of mutual respect to one of mutual affection. It did help that we both had a sense of humor. In his memoir, he recalled that during one session on Bosnia, where I was advocating the use of
Naima,
force,
remind
he
me,
had felt
ain't
compelled
she
to
in trouble
explain to me
for what happened in
patiently
Somalia?
the military's
Remind me what that
proper
whole thing
role.
was again.
When the book came out, he sent me a copy inscribed, "Patiently yours, Colin." And when I replied, I signed my note of thanks, "Forcefully yours, Madeline." In time, we really did become the closest of friends, traveling together for speeches, trading frequent phone calls, and having lunch at his beloved Cafe Oji. We talked a lot about our gratitude to the country, our pride in our families, and our distaste of aging. He offered me plenty of advice. The last time I saw him, he instructed me to count each
Oh,
step
I was saying, didn't she get in trouble for something in Somalia?
falling down the stairs. I now do that several times a day, and each time I think of Colin. This morning, my heart ached.
So just let me know if this
Because
balance
we
is right
lost a
between
friend,
hearing her and
and our
hearing me.
nation one of its finest and most loyal soldiers. Yet even as we contemplate the magnitude of our loss, we can almost hear a familiar voice asking us, no, commanding us, to stop feeling sad, to turn our gaze once again from the past to the future and to get on with the nation's business while making the absolute most of our own days on earth, one step at a time. To that command, we can only reply, yes, sir.
Oh, that's it. Everybody can hear me and also hear the speaker. I don't need to turn up the volume. Let me know. Y'all on my tech. Microphone check. 1 2 1 2. I'm so silly. Yeah, I'm just gonna Google Madeleine Albright real quick because I'm like, So there goes your answer, Naima, yet again. For the lack of soul in this funeral, that it's very Anglican, it's very European, it's very strict and vacant of emotion. But again, you know, this is our nation, right? Our nation is still founded on a lot of European ideals and traditions, right? So all of this is very, very strict, right? If this was an African funeral, you know, African American, you know, New Orleans, this would be totally different. But again, military, government, policy, National Cathedral is a huge honor only given to a very select few amount of people, specifically, you know, outside of being presidents, right? So he didn't lie in state like John Lewis did, but he is, you know, there's like levels to this shit. There's literally levels to the level of pomp and circumstance given to individuals in our country, right? So for an entire week, the flags were flown at half-mast for Colin Powell. So that was a thing, only afforded to a certain amount of people, right? He didn't get to lie in state, but there's a funeral here. He had the full military regalia, battalion, whatever, 3-gun salute, whatever it is that they do. Don't know what the cannons were involved, but the choirs here. So again, this is not like, oh, we're just watching this on TV. This is all like set in stone, and decisions are made as to who does and who does not get these levels of, again, pomp and circumstance. So again, critical lens of what are we watching, why is this happening the way it's happening, and for whom it is happening to or for, i.e. Colin Powell. Yeah, she defended UN sanctions against Iraq. 500,000 children died. Boom. Yes. Madeleine Albright. I just wanted to make sure people were aware of like who she is, right? And again, these people who are coming to sing the praises of Colin Powell, most of them will not, when they die, be able to assemble or attract this level of high caliber people from various sectors in our society, right? Again, government, military, civic leaders and engagement, organizers, not going to be able to have this, right? And for him to have that level, that much respect in all of those different divergent sectors of society, huge, right? And again, this is not to escape or mitigate the damage of weapons of mass destruction. I am not saying that, oh, you know, Iraqi lives don't matter. Not saying that at all, right? Like, clearly, you know what I'm saying? Major issue, you know? But again, for me, it's the transmutation. How is he able to transmute his pain into power? I believe that the reason why he founded the Colin Powell Center for Policy Study was because he was like, yo, like, this really doesn't feel good, feel right. But what can I do so that when other people, for generations to come, are in these rooms to make these huge decisions that can impact millions of people's lives, what can I do to share with them and give them the tools that they would need to either, one, stand up to power, or two, actually understand how power operates, and three, be able to then make a decision, an informed decision, right? So again, if we look at the trajectory of the timeline, 2002 weapons of mass destruction, he said it. By 2005, he was saying, nah, I took an L on that. I apologize. I was wrong, right? I listened to some woman. I'll just turn this down because y'all, I mean, yeah. And thank you all so much for watching and tuning in. Just let me know who you are and where you're watching from. It's my tambourine here. You know, when I was watching, I was listening to NPR, and you know, there was a woman on there. I think she wrote for the New Yorker. I can't remember right now, but you know, her critique was that Colin Powell knew where he knew sooner than 2005, and he should have come out earlier than 2005 and could have come out stronger than what he already came out strongly saying. And I'm just like, and Madeleine Albright is at his funeral right now, and she ain't saying shit about defending UN sanctions against Iraqi children. So, you know, to whom much is given, as much as to whom much is given, much is required, right? Like, so again, the machinations, right? So, okay, you want to hold Colin Powell to that high of a standard, right? Look at his body right there. Okay, you want to do that? Okay, well, maybe then if he spoke up that vehemently against it, he either one would not be able to have raised the money for the Colin Powell Center for Policy Study, for which I got my fellowship, or two, he wouldn't be able to pull all the people that he wanted to pull to sit there and talk to us and mentor us, including, of all people, brace yourselves, Henry Kissinger. So again, politics is a game of power, right? So when you speak out and you speak up, there's a cost to
My
pay.
sisters and I were
So
raised
that's
under
my
the
goal.
stars.
That he's the son of Colin Powell. He was the chair of the FCC for a while, which I also had issues with the way that he was running the FCC and,
for his 13 rules.
you know, antitrust and empowering corporations. But that, you know, he's not his father. Let's hear him.
It was a warm and joyous and loving home, anchored by our strong and graceful mother, Alma.
It's so hard to talk at a funeral. God damn it.
Our parents taught us right. They taught us wrong. And they taught us to take responsibility for our actions and never to blame others.
Thank you all so much for watching.
Disappointing them was the worst punishment you could imagine.
This is so hard.
My father is frequently remembered as a problem solver.
I'm just texting some more people that they can watch. So
while his solutions to world
Y'all got
problems
it.
may have been elegant, his fixes around the house were a bit more kludgy. He believed he could cheaply fix anything with a little duct tape, some wire, and a can of spray paint. He'd even propose a solution for a non-existent problem just to satisfy his curiosity about how something worked. Like the time in high school, he decided that my cherished 1962 Chevy Impala was making a noise. It definitely was not.
This is so hard, by the way, to eulogize your father.
Nonetheless, he pursued the phantom sound by pulling the
Just
engine,
know
something he had never
that
done
my
before.
father will never die. I've already
He spent
talked
a
to
whole
God about
weekend
this.
hanging chained
My
and
father's
hoisting
not
the engine
going.
and
He's
messing
going
with
to be
who knows
highly
what.
functioning forever.
When he put it
Because
back together and
I
started
Canadian
it,
can't
the
do this.
car
I
rocked
will
like a
not be able to do
helicopter.
this. This is on record right now.
We rushed to the door and saw him backing out of the driveway with a big, proud smile on his face. But that smile faded quickly when he shifted the car into drive, and it would never go forward again. But he was always thinking.
So hard.
So he donated the car to the local fire
Hi,
department.
Crest Vision.
To get it there,
Is that Paul?
he
Is that
literally
who that
drove
is?
the car backwards on public roads for 3 miles, smiling at astonished drivers along the way. He liked tinkering. When he was a one-star general living in Fort Carson, Colorado, he inexplicably became fascinated with mechanical adding machines. He would buy them by the pallet at auction and then try to get the machines to work. At one point, there were so many adding machines, he had to store them in the garage refrigerator. I suppose every general needs a signature eccentricity. George Patton had pearl-handled revolvers. Colin Powell had adding machines. His zest for life derived from his endless passion for people. He was genuinely interested in everyone he met. He loved a hot dog vendor, a bank teller, a janitor, and a student.
Thank you all for tuning in.
Not long ago, he was driving his Corvette on the Beltway and got a flat tire.
A young disabled veteran saw him and pulled over to help. With the tire fixed, the young vet sheepishly asked if he could take a quick selfie. But my dad took time to ask about his family and his friends and his life, something no Instagram moment could ever uncover.
Right, social media.
A few days later, to thank him for his help, my father invited the vet and his entire family over to the house for dinner. Colin Powell was a great leader because he was a great follower. He knew you could not ask your troops to do anything you were unwilling to do yourself. One time I was walking into the PX with my dad. We came upon a corporal saluting a captain over and over again. My father walked up and asked this captain what he was doing. The captain replied, "Sir, this corporal failed to salute me, so I'm making him salute me 100 times. My dad said, "That's fine, but you make darn sure you salute him back every single time. The exchange of salutes is a sign of mutual respect." He loved the troops with all his heart. The morning I was flying to Germany for my first assignment as a new Army officer, he came into my room to say goodbye. He leaned over and kissed me on the cheek and whispered gently, "Take care of our soldiers." Countless people have benefited from his mentorship. He could offer weighty wisdom in a few choice words. I recall when I was chairman of the FCC and having a very rough go in the press, I emailed him and asked, maybe I should consider stepping down. The response was swift. Powells don't quit.
Damn.
People will long forget the issues you're dealing with. They will never forget how you conduct yourself. Then he quoted a passage from Thomas Jefferson's second inaugural address, which reads, "I have learned to expect that it will rarely fall to the lot of imperfect man to retire from this station with the reputation and the favor which bring him into it." In other words, public service comes at a cost if you're committed to doing the right thing. Colin Luther was very proud of his Jamaican immigrant heritage and loved his big West Indian family.
Big up, big up.
Family was the foundation of his beliefs and the source of never-ending comfort.
I love this.
Bringing shame to the family was the cardinal sin. He frequently said, "Don't forget where you came from." Words that call us to remain grateful, to stay humble, and to be brave. In The Road to Character, David Brooks draws a distinction between resume virtues and eulogy virtues. Resume virtues are your achievements and your skills. Eulogy virtues are those discussed at your funeral. The ones that exist at the core of your being, whether you are kind, brave, honest, or faithful. This person has a quiet but solid sense of right and wrong, not only to do good, but to be good.
Keep
He wants to
commenting.
love
Tell me what you all
intimately, to
think.
sacrifice self in the service of others, and to live in obedience to some transcendent trust. That was my father.
Damn.
The example of Colin Powell does not call on us to emulate his resume, which is too formidable for mere mortals.
Yes.
It is to emulate his character and his example as a human being. We can strive to do that. We can choose to be good. We walk through this life holding hands with the ones we love. They guide us. They pull us out of harm's way. They touch and caress us with love and kindness. One of my most powerful memories comes from holding my dad's hand. I was hurt very badly and lying in an ICU bed following a bad accident. It was the middle of the night, yet my father was by my side after a long day of work. I was squirming in pain and anguish. Without a word, he just took my hand and squeezed it with a father's love. It instantly relaxed and put me at peace. The last night of his life, I walked in to see him.
Damn.
Now he was the one
See?
lying in ICU bed.
Yeah.
He could not see or speak to me.
Mm.
So I took his hand,
Damn.
just as he had taken mine decades before.
Mm-mm.
I knew everything was not going to be okay.
Yeah. I'm
I
gonna
wanted
cry.
him to be at peace. But again, I felt my father's love in that hand.
Mm.
That hand that took my mother's hand in matrimony.
Damn.
That hand that held me as a baby. That hand that signed report cards, tossed baseballs, and fixed old cars.
Boom.
That hand that signed treaties and war orders, saluted service members,
Boom.
and gestured joyfully while telling a story. That hand is still now,
Yes, guiding
but it
me.
left a deep imprint on the lives of family and dear friends,
Boom. It's killing it.
soldiers and sailors, presidents and prime ministers, and a
Hello.
generation of aspiring young people.
Boom.
Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "The purpose of life is not to be happy. It is to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, to have it make some difference that you have lived and lived well." My father made a monumental difference. He lived. He lived well. I've heard it asked, are we still making his kind? I believe the answer to that question is up to us. To honor his legacy, I hope we do more than consign him to the history books.
Boom.
I hope we recommit ourselves to being a nation where we are still making his kind. For as he said in his autobiography, his journey was an American journey. Colin Powell was a great lion with a big heart. We will miss him terribly.
Oh no. Damn it. So hard. He did well, right? So hard.
As you're able, I invite you to stand. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. O God, whose mercies cannot be numbered, accept our prayers on behalf of thy servant Colin, and grant him an entrance into the land of light and joy in the fellowship of thy saints. Through Jesus Christ, thy Son, our Lord, who liveth and reigneth with thee and the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen. Almighty God, giver of all comfort, deal graciously with Colin's family and friends in their grief. Surround them with thy love, that they may not be overwhelmed by their loss, but have confidence in thy goodness and strength to meet the days to come. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Just posting on Instagram. Thank you all so much for watching. Oh God, I need tissue. What is MVD? Weapons of mass destruction. I'm not sure what MWD is. Just let me know. And yeah, I think the son did really well. I'm not gonna be able to do that. I'm gonna tell you all that right now. Just not gonna be able to do that for my father. Period. Just know that. Just so he did good. Fuck, I just posted and then didn't post to my other Instagram. God, I hate, like, I need a team. If anybody wants to be my personal assistant, let me know, because, like, my
A
brain
reading
needs to
from
be
the
in
prophet Micah.
this, not posting. I hate social media.
With what shall I come before the Lord and bow myself before God on high? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000 rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul?
Thank you, Marina.
He has told you, O mortal, what is good.
So I think
And what does
she's
the Lord require of you?
the youngest one,
But to do
because I
justice
met Linda.
and to love kindness,
So Michael, I think, is the oldest.
and
Linda's
to
the
walk
middle,
humbly with your God.
because I haven't met her.
The word of the Lord.
Psalms 121. I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where is my help to come? He will not let your foot be moved, and he who watches over you will not fall asleep. The Lord himself watches over
Oh,
you.
it's fine, Marina.
The Lord
It's
is
a lot.
your shade
It's a lot.
at your right hand. The Lord shall preserve you from all evil. It is he who shall keep you safe.
I looked, and there was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, from all the tribes and peoples and languages, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, robed in white with palm branches in their
Hopefully
hands.
y'all can respect
They cried
the
out
fact
in
that
a
I just
loud
need to
voice, saying,
get some tissue and not like
"Salvation
stop watching
belongs
for
to
10
our
seconds
God,
while I like
who is seated
creators
on
were
the
like,
throne
can we breathe? Can we
and
pee?
to the Lamb."
I'll be literally
And
right
all
back.
the
I just need to get
angels stood
tissue.
around the throne and around the elders and the four living creatures, and they fell on their faces before the throne and worshipped God, singing, "Amen, blessing and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving and honor and power and might be to our God forever and ever. Amen."
Amen.
Then one of the elders addressed me, saying, "Who are these, robed in white, and where have they come from?"
Woo.
And I
Yay.
said to him, "Sir, you are the one that knows." Then he said to me,
Jesus.
"These are they who have come out of the great ordeal. They have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. For this reason, they are before the throne of God
And literally,
and worship him day and night within his temple.
as I'm watching
And the one
this
who is seated on the
for
throne
a highly
shall
impactful
shelter
person,
them.
I'm getting
They
a
will hunger no
notification
more and thirst.
on Clubhouse about, Clubhouse is another social media app, and I quote, hold on, "If you're fat, you need to lose weight now. This is my opinion, Success Airlines." So, I mean, it's just this is what I mean. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's going on here? Like here, and this is my issue with social media. That someone as impactful as Colin actual Powell, right? He's bigger than all the people that were able to be vaccinated and in this room. He's bigger than he's numbers. And so these social media people, they think about the numbers. They think about numbers. How many people are watching? How many people like me? How many people, bought my t-shirt? Me. And it's finite and it's empty and it's non-consequential. Right? And so something like this is going to get a whole bunch of people in the room. There's probably more people in, having this conversation right now on Clubhouse. Quote, if you're fat, you need to lose weight now. This is my opinion. There's probably more people focused and talking about that foolishness than watching this or even researching who Colin Powell is, and then if not, heaven forbid, trying to emulate who he is and what and in their own lives, think about what could they do. I mean, it's just ridiculous to me, but yet people think that social media, and it is real. I'm not saying it's not, but it's real, but it's also very sad, because I'm just like, you gotta be kidding me. You gotta be kidding me. Even what weapons of mass destruction notwithstanding, Colin still made a much bigger impact than a lot of these little influencers selling, waist trainers that literally shift all your internal organs just so that you can, in your own opinion, look sexier. This is ridiculous. And so people are doing things on purpose just to to drive more traffic to them. But it's like, well, what are you giving in exchange for all of that traffic other than whipping up people's emotions into a frenzy, stirring up all kinds of insecurities? You know what I'm saying? And here goes this man who's able to thread the needle with military people in politics and in government, people like me who received the fellowship from him for policy study, world leaders. And there's people running around talking about how they're an influencer. It's ridiculous. It's just so bizarre to me. I mean, I think, I was raised and Colin Powell's Jamaican. I'll put this on so that you all can hear it lower. It's very stiff. It's very European funeral that's being had here. Again, my parents are, Colin Powell's Jamaican. Please tell me who you are and where you're watching from. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Are Jamaican and Trinidadian. And so I was raised and I was like, oh, America's Babylon. That's how I was raised. None of this makes sense, right? It's not, what I always say, it's not supposed to make sense. It's just supposed to make money, right? So here we are with a man who literally has the respect of so many people, not trending right now, and then you have other people who, because what they went on a date, Kim Kardashian and Pete Davidson, Jada and Will, they have an open marriage, and I get it to a certain degree, but I also think because America is the new world, right? It was founded on the rejection of Britain, right? And the monarchy. So America is founded on, we don't want to do this. We don't want to do that. We don't want to do all these things that are proper. We're going to do something else. And so when you start to see America unraveling, then you can point to the reason why. Because you're rejecting hard work, actually. You're rejecting being a principle and being disciplined, right? America's like, no, who has time to hand wash clothes? Yeah, I'm gonna put my stuff in a machine, a washing machine. I don't have time to heat up my food, to cook my food. I'm gonna put things in a microwave. America wants everything so easy. So when you're looking at Colin Powell, this is not a man made easy, right? He's a man of many firsts. Well, thank you so much, Lauren. Boom. Thank you for that. Right? So, when we're thinking about what we're even looking at here, it's Babylon, because now it's to the point where someone who is doing very silly, videos, prank videos on Instagram or TikTok is getting millions of views. And then somebody like Colin Powell, guess what? It's ridiculous. or people won't take Colin Powell seriously unless one of these influencers that is making their influence doing foolishness says, "Oh, look, Colin Powell's cool," and then all of a sudden people who, like, I see that's happening on Clubhouse too. Like, we're in a room about some serious issue, and because Paul, the founder of Clubhouse, is on there, or Tiffany Haddish is in there, there's a whole bunch of people. And as soon as Tiffany Haddish leaves, everybody leaves. Huh? So are y'all caring about this issue or not? So they're gonna pray again? Let's hear.
Mrs. Powell, Anne Marie, Linda,
And Michael.
your children, and all the family, today we stand in solidarity.
So Linda, I
with
knew
you
Linda because Linda was also an
life
actress.
And death.
So we
We say in our
conversed several
prayers
times.
and
She didn't
farewell
talk yet. I'm not sure
to
why,
Colin
but
Luther Powell, son, loving
this
husband,
is so sad.
devoted father, grandfather, friend,
Thank you all
soldier,
so much for watching.
counselor to presidents, senior statesman, man of peace, child of God. I pray you will feel us holding you up in this time. But most importantly, the loving arms of God around you all. And I hope that also in this brief span of time, in memory and honor of your beloved Colin, we may know ourselves more united as Americans. The measure of Colin Powell's life, this good and great man, is more than any one person can fully take in or tell. These heartfelt, moving, and poignant tributes took us a long way. And so your presence here today, as you stand with this family, all of you, your memories, indeed even the person you are, is now a part of that larger mosaic that tells of the life of Colin Powell. The love and years you shared as family are forever with you, imprinted deep within your hearts. And the impact of Colin's life on you, his friends, colleagues, and this nation reveals the fullest picture that we can have. You know the ways he formed and influenced you, whether up close or through historical events. This man had a discernible gift to project gravitas, warmth, and goodness, which called us all to our better selves, to strive for the good and the just.
Yes, Lauren, and you had texted me directly. So what I always share with people, like people who have my number, when I'm actually on social media platform or whatever, just handle it straight on here. Because like my attention span is only going to be able to, you know what I'm saying? I'm here, so just here. So yeah, I had already addressed that. You just weren't there when I addressed it. I addressed the whole thing, right? So yes, I said that, and I did a Clubhouse about it too, right? That for me, the Colin Powell issue, right? And what happened in terms of being a war criminal was the first time in my life as an unapologetic, unadulterated, unforgiving, you know what I'm saying, activist, that I had to reconcile with myself. Hey, wait a minute, what am I doing here? Am I doing a dance with the devil here by accepting his fellowship? And again, I leave this on at this volume on purpose because, again, to me, it's all political theater, right? So I mean, you don't need to hear any one particular thing. Just know that his tone is, oh my God, Colin Powell. He's so this, he's so that, he's so amazing. So I'm leaving this on purpose, right? Because again, for me, my logo, Black issues, right? Is that all of these things are layered and are happening at the same time, and nuance is a thing, right? So yeah, I already addressed that, right? That for me at the time, back in 2008, when I had the opportunity and I was actually nominated by my professor to do it, I had already been watching Meet the Press, McLaughlin Group, a lot of these like policy shows, you know, and protesting, anti-war protester up until that point, up until 2008 when I got that fellowship, and or when I was nominated. And I talked to my father about it. My father's a big time anti-war, anti-capitalism, anti-everything activist, right? And it's the reason why I am the way I am. And I talked to Daddy, and I was like, I don't know what to do for multiple reasons. One, I had been kicked out of City College. I was supposed to have finished my master's degree by 2002 or 2003. And I got kicked out because my GPA was so low because I was busy partying. Because, like, to me, to be honest with you, and again, I'm always honest, the education program, and this is not just a city college, this is not a city college thing. Most education programs at all of these teacher preparatory institutions, they're bullshit. They're not actually preparing you to be in the classroom. Or if they are, it's very minimal, and it's just like a lot of blah, 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 blah. I'm like, this ain't got nothing to do with me being a teacher. Like, what is this? So after a while, I was just like, deuces, like, I'm not really paying attention here. So I got kicked out. So when I got reinstated, I had to beg and plead and cry, and my parents shamed me literally for years. Years, my parents shamed me. Like, I'm sitting here trying to go Thanksgiving dinner. Oh, but you're not getting your master's, huh? I'm sitting here, you know, going shopping with mommy. You know that dress would look real nice if you would wear it for graduation for your master's. I mean, like, anything you can think of, my parents would find a way to shame me because I did not get my master's. Okay, so that's what, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. So by the time I was 27, I was like, all right. And I went to the bursar's office, and I had to cry, whine, complain. I had to be interviewed. It was a whole thing for me to get reinstated at City College. And it worked. Shaming works. And I was so scared and was so just grateful to be reinstated that I bust my ass. I'm in the basement of the staffs of the library, researching about my thesis, because the last time my thesis, I personally think that was my undoing. The other professor that I had, to me, I was like, what are you doing? Didn't really understand me. It was just like, this is the way it is. And then that was it. And I was like, no, I want to do it this way. And she was like, no. Trashed my my what is it that you call it when you get all the research that you get together? I forget right now, right? But whatever it is, she trashed it. She was just like, whatever, right? And I was like, meh. And so then I got kicked out. I was like, well, never mind. I wanted to do my research on what is it called again? Your paper review. I can't remember right now, and I'm ashamed that I don't remember right now. But again, I'm doing a lot. After this, I still have to be in characters for Black People the Blacks for 4 or 5 hours straight. Not this many people who are artistic or also this academic, right? So whatever research review, paper review, whatever it was called, it was trashed. So then when I got reinstated, I had another professor, Dr. Megan Blumenreich. And Blumenreich, she understood me. She understood whoa, because by that time, I had gotten the cover of the Village Voice Arts section for thesis, for for my avant-garde performance art, right? So I'm really an artist that is blessed enough to have an academic brain and can focus. A lot of artists can't, to sit there and even be in a master's program specifically for education, not a master's program like an MFA. No, I was getting a hardcore master's in Masters of Science and Curriculum Development. Right? So by that time, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. And she listened to me and was like, okay, I'm going to figure out a way to honor your artistic side and your academic side. And she just let me do what I wanted to do. Right? And so I was like, okay, you see me for who I am. I'm going to cry again. And I bust my ass. Didn't see the transition from spring to summer to fall. No clue. I was just in there all the time. And so what was supposed to be a 15-page thesis was 60 fucking pages. 60 pages.
Accompanied by the same admonition.
Me, who used to party till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, dancing on top of tables. Me, 60 pages on funds of knowledge on how to engage parents from multiple income and socioeconomic status and background to meet them where they are, elevate and amplify knowledge that they already have, how to do home visits, how to engage parents, how to have event. That. So because that teacher saw me for who I am, I was like, yay. And like I went in. And so here comes my thesis. Like I was supposed to date. I was in love with this guy for years, Muhammad. Warren Muhammad.
And that person is the
loves him. He was Guyanese and he was like this like Indian version, because you know in the Caribbean there's black, there's Indian and stuff like that. So he was like the Indian version of Lenny Kravitz. And I was in love. Do you understand me? In love. I was like, oh my God, like he's so revolutionary. He's like, fuck it. You know, his hair is long, his beard is growing, all of this stuff. And I loved him. And he was in town. And he was like, all right, like, let's meet up. And that was the day that was like the deadline of deadlines for me to finish this thesis. And I had to print the whole thing out, 60 pages. City College is cheap because they don't have no money because they're not charging that much money for tuition. These printers didn't have paper. The printers didn't have ink. I'm running around printer to printer, lying to security guards about how, oh yeah, because I'm supposed to be out the building, doing all of this to get this thesis together. 60 pages. Plus I had like artifacts of like pictures of the parents and their children, pictures of me visiting the parents, pictures of me putting together events with the parents in the schools, all of this, okay? So I had the 60 pages, plus I had this other addendum of all this other data of like anecdotes. This is a whole binder. You talk about binder full of women? I had like a binder full of my research. So I'm 28, it's like midnight, and Warren is like, yo, are you meeting me? And I'm like, never saw Warren again. To this day, Warren went to Hungary or something and started playing guitar and was just like dated somebody else. But I was so determined to finish that thesis. So when I finished it, and I went from getting an F with the former professor to getting an A, I think I got an A or A minus. So then Dr. Megan Blumenreich was like, oh my God, I love what you're doing. It's so great. Like, you know, she even had me do a performance because she knows I do monologues. So she had me perform. And one of the parents, I think, ended up dying. One of the parents that I did the interview and the home visit for, like, she was like on life support in a hospital. Okay, so I performed as a parent and I performed as a person interviewing her. Dr. Megan Blumenreich let me do all of that. So I did a 60-page thesis. I had a whole binder full of pictures and audio and visuals, and I did a performance. God knows where that performance is now. This is before cell phones had cameras, so don't even know if that even exists. So I did all of that. And Dr. Megan Blumenreich was like, you're really good about education policy. There's this new fellowship I think you should look into. Huh? Me, who was kicked out of City College, now being referred to for a Colin Powell Fellowship. So at that point, my grades are fucked up. Colin Powell's a war criminal. What if they like look at like what my grades were before, and then just automatically not only reject my application but also look at my professor like, woman, like, what are you doing recommending this student? The student is a hot mess. Why are you recommending her? All of this was going on in my head at the same time. Again, issues, right? So I go, So I tell my father, and my father's like, my father, mind you, Winthrop Older, Google him, you know, teacher over like 30, 40 years, published, wrote a book. My father, National Endowment for the Humanities, Teacher of the Year awards. My father's everything, right? So my father was like, I'll never forget this. He was like, let them tell you no.
In the habitation of thy glory.
So the one blazer I had and the one little pair of stud earrings that I had, because at that point I was still like this very iconoclast, like artist. I'm walking around with feather earrings, even though I was a teacher. Feather earrings, pink eyebrows. I'm just very avant-garde. So here I am, like, all right, let me do this interview. Let me see. Whatever. What am I gonna do? Right?
In his presence.
So I go, but I'm giving this whole story because like that's why I'm crying, right? For a war criminal, right? So here I am, and I'm like, all right, I have on my one blazer, I have on a blouse, I don't know, like I don't even do dry clean only clothes, leave me alone. I don't like dry cleaning, like it's harmful to the environment, right? So here I am with my dry clean only blazer and my my little blouse or whatever, and trying to look as professional, whatever the hell that means, as possible, right? And I do the interview. I'm like, hi, this is who I am. I'm really passionate about policy, education reform. At that time, I wasn't the director of history yet. Or was I? I don't even remember. At Harlem Children's Home. Oh, it's gonna make me cry again. So I'm at the interview, and I don't know what the hell's going on, but I say what I say, and I'm like, okay. And a few days later, I got this email, and it's like, boom, you're accepted. Huh? Yeah. So, so I was aware at that point, right, that Aetna, New York Life, and JP Morgan and Chase Bank were getting into a lot of trouble because researchers were starting to reveal that all three institutions, New York Life, which is insurance, Aetna, which is insurance, and JP Morgan Chase Bank, had financed the slave trade. So I was very actively aware of that. And it just so happens that Colin Powell, the fellowship for policy study, was funded by New York Life. Interesting. So I was like, well, this is interesting. That, yes, the issue of weapons of mass destruction, but here he is raising all this money to build this entire namesake institution using money from what used to be, a slave financing institution. Well, this is kind of like reparations here. Don't sweat the technique. So I'm looking at all of this and I'm like, okay. And while, the weapons of mass destruction thing is a thing, right? Like I am not taking away what happened in Iraq, what happened with Iraqi children for generations. Not excusing that at all. In a second, I'm gonna have to walk and plug in my iPad because the battery's dying. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take this fellowship, and I took it, and it was life changing, right? So it was the first time in my life where me, in my like utopian activist, this is right and this is wrong mindset, had to reckon with the third dimension. Nothing's pure, right? I'm using Apple right now, right? Apple doesn't pay taxes. Apple, like every other tech company, is exploiting children to mine coltan, to sit there and make the microchips in all of this equipment that we use to then amplify these issues of injustice. That I knew that in 2008. I knew that in 2002. I knew that in 2001 when I graduated from Howard University, which I do have to vote for. Right? Howard. And mind you, Colin Powell was on the board of Howard University. So it was the first time where I literally had to really say to myself, okay, right? We live in the third dimension, good and evil, right? And you can be pure in your intentions till the high heavens, but that's just not how things are going to be, you know, in America or in our lifetime. And it was the first time that I literally had to reckon with that like, fuck, you know what I'm saying? Like there's a greater good to be had in the long term, if that could be stated, than in the moment, right? Because if I did not get that fellowship with Colin Powell, number one, it was $15,000, right? So it helped me get out of college debt, and it helped me set up at that time, before Black Issues, my other company, which was called Sit Your Ass Down, right? So I was already doing a lot of like social justice media. I've been doing this for 20 years, right? So that money helped me to even more so solidify what I was doing, keep me afloat, and also had me thinking about, for the first time, financial literacy. So at the time, I'm just gonna get my charger. Give me a second. So at the time, I was a teacher. This is 2008, when Obama was running for president. And I was at that time, I was still a teacher. I was a 5th grade teacher. And I had these adorable kids, my beloved honey bunches of oats that I loved, right? So, and I told them the whole thing. I told them, I would tell them everything, which is what I think teachers should do more often, instead of being in a goddamn textbook curriculum all the time. No, I would actually talk to your students about what it is to be alive, what it is to be human. So we would do that I'm gonna cry again. We would do that every Friday. Every Friday, we bust out all the work up until Thursday. Friday, we'd be sitting on the rug, get your pillow. I'd play some jazz or some music that I loved, and we would talk. I can't remember what I called it now, but we would talk about all these issues. Fifth graders. So I would cry about Obama and how I don't know if he's going to become president. We would talk about the Constitution, because it was American history that I was teaching them. All of this I would do. I was a very transparent, vulnerable, here's what it is to be alive, and also be empowering at the same time type of teacher, right? So I would show them at the time that I had been investing on E-Trade. And I would tell them about E-Trade. I would tell them about interest, you know, how you save your money and how much, what the interest rate is. I would tell them about how to own instead of renting versus owning. All of this. If I didn't get that fellowship, I probably wouldn't, or if I did, it wouldn't have been had detailed, or I wouldn't be able to project it on the screen. So I would show them, this is how much money I'm investing on E-Trade. This is how much money I'm saving. This is my goal to own. At the time, I wanted a co-op, right? Oh, none of this would have happened, right? If I had said, no, you're a war criminal. None of that would have happened, right? And I'm telling the students about meeting, you know, all these people that I met through that fellowship. The Desmond Tutu Center, the deputy mayor of New York City at the time, Henry Kissinger. That's a whole other story, right? So if I had just stayed in my resolute, no means no, wagging my finger, shame on you. I'm not going to do that. I'm too pure. If I did that to that fellowship, whatever. Sure. Okay. It would have been somebody else who ain't as empowering as I am, and wouldn't be able to transmute all of the information that I got from that fellowship as potently as I did, for all the other things that I was doing at the time and still continuing to do. Literally, 12, 15 years later? So I said yes, right? So here I am on Clubhouse last week, trying to figure out if I should do a room. I was depressed. I'll be 100% honest with you. I'm frustrated. I feel like I give, and I share. And, you know, not everyone, but a lot of people aren't sharing my things as much as I share their things, or not taking as much action, or whatever it is. And so, great, I have 2 people watching me right now, or I have like 10 people in my Clubhouse room. It's very frustrating, right? So I think I was in my head last week, fuck, bullshit, fuck, right? didn't start my room as I do every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Black Friday Black Experience on the Clubhouse. So I'm right, whatever it is I'm doing. So then my father text messaged me, and I see what you're saying about ethical consumption. Right, there's no way. So my father text messaged me and said that there's some like special on Colin Powell on PBS, right? And it was a previously aired special from 2012 or something. But I was like, you know what? I'm obviously gonna watch this, but I'm just gonna do a room on Clubhouse, and you know, everyone can just listen to it because not everybody has PBS. You know, everyone's cutting their cords, or they don't have the PBS station that I have in New York that's playing it. Again, Colin Powell comes from New York, comes from the Bronx, graduated from City College, so it might be that, you know, PBS in Ohio is not playing this thing on a random Friday a week after Colin Powell's death. They're not, right? So then let me just play it. So I'm playing it, and when it's done, I open up the audience to talk about Colin Powell, and again, wade in the waters of, you know, this conundrum of like, what does it mean for the weapons of mass destruction, but then also the full expanse of his career, right? Like, again, I'm anti-war. Here's a man whose whole identity is to a certain degree war, right? Like, I'm not going to ascribe that to him because clearly he has a whole identity of being a father, being a family man, all kinds of other things, right? I love you more, Lauren. So I'm doing the room, and people are coming up on stage and they're talking. I'm 100% clear, right? I just tagged the Colin Powell School on my video on Instagram. So I'm clear, right? And I think these conversations could be had. And I think when people want to play cat and mouse and they want to be coy and they want to wear a mask, this is why society doesn't advance to the degree that it could and should, because people don't actually have conversations, right? It's like, we can't say that, we can't do that, like, but it's happening anyway, so you might as well talk about it, right? That's how I am as a teacher, that's how I am as a content creator, that's how I am as a comedian, the whole thing. So I'm doing the room and I'm talking about all these things, weapons of mass destruction, but also how he has a large career in terms of nonprofit work, being on the board of Howard University and starting the Colin Powell School, a whole generation, right, of young people, youngsters is what he called us, that are now empowered to challenge policy, to challenge power, and actually understand how power and policy works, so then we can then look at it and be like, all right, boom, boom, this is why it needs to be this instead of that, right? So I'm having people come up, talk about the web, and again, like the weapons, you know what I'm saying? That's not an issue for me to talk about. I'm not gonna be like, no, you're right, oh my God, and then like shut down my YouTube live or my Clubhouse. No, like I'm 100% clear, and so is he, to be honest with you. Colin Powell's also clear about the failings of that address, right? So, you know, so here I am talking about this, right? And I hear a bunch of kids outside in the hallway being really loud in my building. And they were loud for like 2 hours. 11 o'clock they're loud, 12 o'clock they're loud. All right, it's almost 1 o'clock in the morning. Y'all still being this loud? So I open up the door, and I'm still on Clubhouse. And I'm like, I'm on Clubhouse. I'm like, yo, I'm about to regulate on these people because this is ridiculous. These kids are up this late, and not even up, but just this loud. You know what I'm saying? It's loud, right? So I open up the door and I'm like, y'all gonna need to like be quiet. Like, you know, it's a little loud now. Like it's Friday night, but it's loud, right? And all I hear is Miss Holder. What?
Savior, we commend thy servant Colin. Acknowledge.
Mama Doo was in my class and remembered everything. And literally what he is saying is, I just spoke to my other friends who were in your class about what you said about investing and being proud of who you are.
And into the glorious company.
Can't make that up. Can't make that up. He was like, I thank you so much for the impact that you made. Can't make that up.
Now go forth.
So the larger arc of the arc of the moral universe that bends towards justice is that. Literally. As I'm on Clubhouse talking about how me accepting this fellowship was one of the most difficult things for me to do in my life, occupying
Love
hypocrisy,
yourself.
right?
Blessing of God Almighty, the
Right?
Father,
At my door
Son,
is
and the
a
Holy
student, a
Spirit.
former student of mine who's like
Be
20s,
on you
I don't know,
and the
24,
entire
25, 26, I don't even
and
know.
all of God's creation,
Graduated from Stanford
this
University
day and forevermore.
and grateful to me and talked about me a few days ago. So excited to see me.
Let us go
And was
forth
just like,
in the
yo,
name
yo,
of
yo, yo,
Christ.
yo, 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 yo. And I'm looking at him like, my hair's not done. Like, so that was a larger lesson that I learned about, you know what I'm saying? Like, even as an activist, I'm not saying it's a level of humble, but it's a level of nuance and fully understanding, like, not necessarily grace per se, but, and definitely not shoot first and ask questions later either, right? Right? Because again, I get that, Lauren, but like, you came on when you came on and you didn't see the beginning of what I said, right? So also tone in terms of like, even when you're coming at someone, it's like, you know, I'm not sure, or can we also consider this? Because if not, right? And it's like, yeah, you're right, but could be that you tuned in 2 seconds too late. I could have just said that like 10 seconds ago, right? And then it's like, that's why when we're looking at all this wokeness that like Fox and all the rest of them are trying to weaponize, that's why. Because when we come off with our level of like nuanced understanding of the bullshit of America, and we're like, that can also come off tone deaf as the people that we're critiquing, right? So again, I learned that lesson because of what the eat crow that I had to do, right? To be up in that fellowship. Biggest lesson of my life. There would be no Mama Do at my door at 1 o'clock in the morning thanking me if I didn't do that fellowship. So, you know, if you want to say, pun intended, full circle, it doesn't get more full circle than that. And we're black, right? It's just in terms of being, again, so like I'm blurted, I'm black and urgent like all day, you know, like don't get it twisted, right? Like I get it, you know what I'm saying? You know, I am in my integrity, like, and I have said no to so many things, and I've lost so much opportunities to make money because I'm so busy trying to make a difference, right? Like, I was looking at, you know, with all the issues, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? The solutions, right? So trust me, I get it, you know? But to me, it's like, no one's perfect, right? And, you know, I'll take Colin Powell over Condoleezza Rice, over Clarence Thomas, over Obama. Colin Powell's a bigger deal than Obama. Oh, he certainly is. Certainly is. Now, mind you, Obama's younger, so maybe let's see if Obama is able to pivot to the degree that Colin Powell pivoted, right? Because what, like, you're talking like 12 years ago, Colin Powell's 84, so we're talking about early 70s that Colin Powell started the Colin Powell Center for Policy Study, but he was doing America First before that. He was doing AmeriCorps before that, right? So let's see, right? Like, Obama still has time, but I would say not really, because Obama's been silent, you know, radio silent the whole time. Chicago has been pop, shoot 'em up this whole time, and that's your so-called adopted hometown. And even this like ground-raising for the Powell Center, have you all researched all the controversy around that and how it took away parklands and how a lot of people in Chicago didn't want it? You know, so let's see the degree to which Obama really is going to impact and empower that specific Chicago community when that whole thing is built, and where to get the money from, right? And to what degree is it Black owned, right? Like Black owned architect, Black owned construction, Black owned pens, Black owned catering. Let's see, right? So no, I stand by it. I stand by the fact that Colin Powell is a bigger deal in terms of actual intangible impact in the community, and Obama's more of a symbol. Because if Colin Powell is a war criminal, so is Obama. He said so during his Nobel Peace Prize. I was like, what Nobel Peace Prize recipient literally excuses war? He said that in his speech. Drones were being dropped on, what was it, Pakistan, as he accepted the Nobel Peace Prize. So again, you know what I'm saying? Like, be careful, like tone, you know what I'm saying? In terms of like how we approach people, you know, what we say, when we say, like, because Obama is a symbol. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's how many kids, like, you know, stop that. You know your president was Black for 8 years. It's not stopping anybody from shooting each other in the street right now or shooting themselves up with drugs right now. Like, and Obama to be like classist. You know what I'm saying? His institute, the Obama fellows and all of that, that's still very like talented 10th and very groomed. I have yet to hear and see any of these Obama fellows do anything. I mean, and maybe they are. I'm not saying that they're not, but again, impasse. Like, let's go. Let me see. Let me hear. Your legacy. Like, who lives on? Who are you living within? Right? Like, Colin Powell is living within me. Like, I'm living based on that opportunity. Again, that's why I be looking at these little social media influencers like it's bullshit. Like, what are you, huh? Like, what? What are you selling? What are you doing? You have how many millions of followers? For what? Your room is how big on Clubhouse? About what?
Right now you're seeing
But you can't get this.
President Biden and former President
You can't get presidents.
Obama, as well as the current and former First Ladies, approaching, talking to, comforting Alma Powell, the widow of former Secretary of State and retired General Colin Powell. Whereas
You know what I'm saying? You can get millions of followers, but can you get the flag flown at half-mast?
A tough day for Alma Powell.
You know what I'm saying? So that to me is impact. So and he was so disrespectful in Flint. Yes, he was. He was gaslighting the people in Flint. Like, I love this water. He was saying things about this water. What? Like, that was Obama in Flint. Colin Powell didn't do that. Right? One thing. Weapons of mass destruction. You can argue also the fact that he was in the military to begin with. But again, if he wasn't in the military, he would not have been able to amass the people and the power and the money needed to start the Colin Powell School. No one would care. No one would want to name anything Colin Powell School, right? If he wasn't in the military. So what I'm saying is he didn't drop the baton. Really, it's not like he is a singular figure and just had blood on his hands. He wiped that clean and was doing other things. He was planting more seeds, watering them, and watching them grow. That's all I'm going to say.
Severe, obviously.
Yeah. Nuanced. That's a lesson I learned. Because if not, you know what I'm saying? And to me, when we think about cancel culture, and we want to come like that, like, think about it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
his voice cracking.
Look real good before, we drag and we tear down. I mean, and again, like, every time I go to my parents' house in years, arguing about Obama. My parents can't stand my stance. They can't stand it. Arguments.
He begins talking about we grew up
about my constant critique of Obama.
lapels of Colin
Hey,
Powell,
critiquing
but
Obama.
then doesn't mention again.
And I'm gonna put
that
Kamala Harris in there too, even though
and that is one of the
she and
most
I
appreciated parts of
graduated from
American
Howard
military strength is the military family.
right?
And to have
So
his
for
son
me,
be able to eulogize
the
him
more
in
and
this
more and
way,
more you look at
to
Colin
have his
Powell
grandkids present is a
and
testament to
what
the
he
strength
did,
that those who serve draw from
WMD,
families,
but
and
all
also
the
the
other things he
sacrifices that
did,
those families make. Every
I'm like,
promotion
y'all,
is a
like,
family disruption.
shut up.
Every move that's a new
Like,
opportunity
not
is a
shut
disruption
up,
for the
like,
family, and they are
don't
the rock that
critique,
keeps our
right?
military
But shut
together.
up in terms
And
of
Jennifer
if that's the
Lewis,
only
who's-
thing that you can
there
say,
was
if
some
that is a
humor,
singular
obviously,
way to analyze this man, I'm like, deuces. You know what I'm saying? Because like, no,
as well
it's
as Michael
intellectually
Powell.
lazy
Michael Powell
to
making it
only
very clear
frame.
that there was not a military style order to their family life at home.
It is intellectually lazy to only frame Colin Powell through the lens of weapons of mass destruction. That is intellectually disingenuous. Not even lazy, disingenuous. So, you know, people don't like when others critique people. They're trying to idolize. Yeah. I don't idolize anybody. I don't idolize anybody. Nope. Right? Bob Marley had babies everywhere. Bob Marley, like, what the hell with Rita? Right? Like, to what degree was that an agreement? Versus to what degree was she just like gaslit, or I don't know, or maybe me, that's a reach, and like women can activate their agency, and she chose what she chose. I don't know. Bob Marley's not perfect. Fela, not perfect, right? Love him. Love Obama. You know, I mean, not Obama. Love Fela. Love Bob. Flawed, right? So again, we live in third dimension. No one is perfect. Everyone has flaws, right? My flaw, I'm arrogant. My flaw, I'm a shopaholic. Right? Or arrogant, I don't even know. Whatever. I'm not even arrogant. I just say shit. I'm just like, bam, that's it. Done. You know? So everyone has flaws. No one is perfect, you know? So, but I think some people are, I guess, you know, we're going to judge here. Some people are more perfect than others. And again, on balance, at least there's a balance with Colin Powell. There's a lot of people that like maybe didn't do something as big as weapons of mass destruction, but in their time with what they had, they didn't do as much as they could have done. Right? Look at all these stars right now. How many of them coming out for the Ahmaud Arbery case? How many of them coming out about the injustice with Kyle Rittenhouse? Ahmaud Arbery has only one black juror. Where's Will Smith and Jay-Z and Beyonce and all these other people? Where are they for that? Jay-Z put up his Instagram account for one day, got 2 million followers, put his movie Harder They Come, which I guess is a black movie and it's probably empowering, already off of Instagram. It's bullshit. Do you understand? Jay-Z, you could do anything. You could put you could put your movie and put what the fuck is going on with Ahmaud Arbery and put what the hell's going on. You could do that. You could say, hey, how come the John Lewis Voter Rights Act is not passed? We just had an election. You could also say, hey, why don't you pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act? But they don't. They don't. So again, when we want to drag people down, we got to look at who they are and what they're doing with the 24 hours and 365 days that they have, that we have, and the money they have, and the money that we don't have. Then let's have an actual nuanced conversation. But to only frame, oh, I love you, Black Lauren, and I'm gonna hop off too. But to only frame Colin Powell from the lens of weapons of mass destruction, and again, both could be true, right? Like, I am not saying erase. Who cares about those Iraqis? I'm not saying mute that conversation about weapons of mass destruction, Iraqi children, you know, warmongering, the military industrial complex. Not just because I'm saying, yo, look at this man, doesn't mean I'm not also saying, yo, look what he did in terms of, I can say both. And I think what happens with this woke movement is that My issue, and again, I'm woke, right? Is it becomes too much, and you know, you know, because for someone to come at me like that, I'm like, okay, you know what I'm saying? Like, but I can't possibly say for 45 minutes the entire time he's guilty of weapons of mass destruction. He's a war criminal. He's a war criminal. He's a, like, maybe if I was a performance artist, you know, and I think that that's the issue, that people jump down someone's throat or jump to conclusion because the one thing that they want them to say right now, they're not saying in that moment, right? Like, right? Versus, again, like a Jay-Z, like a Beyonce, all they put out was them in that goddamn Tiffany diamond again. So your brand, as powerful as you think you are, you're still beholden to Tiffany. You're still beholden to maintaining your brand, which means you can't also then speak your truth. Then you're in prison. It's bullshit. You know, what does it mean to be free at that point? Like, everyone, oh yeah, Beyonce. Yeah, so you want to be, you want to be that rich and powerful, but still muted from being able to really say what you want to say. You want that? Millions of followers. And what are we following?
Even though he endorsed Obama, Hillary Clinton, and Biden in these last few presidential elections, Colin Powell's career, as it is, was really made by Ronald Reagan, who made him Deputy National Security Advisor and then National Security Advisor before he was even a stated Republican, when he was still in the military and a registered independent.
That's right, and that's when he became familiar to me, became familiar to my family and millions of Americans. As I sat here, I thought about teaching my daughter about Colin Powell someday. She's only 20 months old. One day, maybe she'll even get to see this funeral because it shows the arc of his life, the lessons that his son talked about.
I think his life is a parable. I actually think
be good. Sacrifice yourself in service of others. Emulate his character.
I actually think Colin Powell's life is a parable for, you know,
right? We talk about the sort of global
for who
doctrine,
you are and
it's
what you can do on your time on earth,
Christian-based
and have a tragic flaw and bounce back.
And such a lesson that you want to pass on to others.
The personal power, that's so well said. But part of Michael Powell's speech that really got me was when he said, people were questioning, do they make him like that? Can a Colin Powell exist in today's society or come up in today's
stupid
society?
social media people.
And his answer was, it's up to us as Americans to give that answer. And I thought that was very poignant because he kind of laid the thesis out there, the question out there, the proposition out there, I should say. And
thank you all so much for watching and tuning in.
To not just look back on his father's life and to talk about how remarkable a career he had, but think about how we as Americans can act in our own lives to make it so that there are other Colin Powells in the future.
It does. It is a challenge for us all. It is a challenge for us all. Wolf Blitzer?
I really think that
very moving, Jake.
Colin Powell is a lesson in cancel culture.
So powerful. All of us were moved. I think all of us were especially moved by Michael Powell.
And a lesson in what do you do with your life? You know,
hands in that final night. Jamie, you watched. It was hard not to break down listening to that.
I cried. I want to
and it's interesting that Linda, the actress, the artist,
today and heard three things
she didn't have a speech. So my heart goes out to, obviously, you know, I know I made it very political my whole show, but like obviously my heart goes out to Linda, to the whole family, the wife.
Big laugh out of his son.
It's so sad.
How if you break your son's Impala, you better know how to drive it backwards. I just
so sad.
It touched on all the points.
I mean, again, death is a thing. Like, it's inevitable. It's still a picture. Damn it. You know.
The dignity of the service reflected the dignity of the man.
Mm-hmm.
And when we heard the arc of his life. He lived the American dream. He called his book American Journey, but he lived. He wasn't the embodiment
patron saint of America.
You could just tell.
I think he embodies exactly what America
The
is.
respect of presidents.
You know,
The respect
the war
of his
part
troops,
of it,
the
fact that he was a black first in so many respects of it, of his
the
life.
country owes a great debt
I
to
really
this
think
man.
that he's like
the point Dana made about
a
what
patron
Michael
saint of
Powell
America. Like
asked the most
that's
question he
America.
said was asked with him. Do they
That's
still
America.
make his kind?
These dances with the
In this
devil,
town right now,
you know,
politics are so coarse.
the rags to
people are so
riches.
polarized. Do they still make his kind? We could use some.
Yeah, it was a special 2 hours that we all saw just now, especially as you correctly pointed out, John,
The patron saint
this
of
current
America.
political time. Suzanne Malveaux was watching very carefully.
Complicated
Suzanne,
legacy,
what was
just like
going
America.
through your heart and
Right?
your mind as you watched?
Well, Wolf, I thought about what he said in his autobiography that World War II changed his name. Before he was Colin, the British pronunciation that was used by the Jamaicans, and then a war hero emerged named Colin Kelly. So to his friends on the neighborhood in the block, he became Colin Powell, but his family always called him Colin Powell. And what I heard from the tributes today is that he served and succeeded in both of those worlds, at being Colin Powell and Colin Powell, from Secretary Albright's highlighting the loyalty he had to his country, to his son Michael's comfort that he felt from the warmness of his father's hand. And 3 years ago, when I had the opportunity to interview General Powell and Secretary Albright, I asked him what he wanted his legacy to be, and he said to me, as a kid coming from the South Bronx, I could not have dreamed I'd reach the positions I did, but I did because this is a great country, and I'm grateful to it. I hope my legacy is that he was a pretty good soldier, did his duty, and loved his country. And so, Wolf, I dare say that Powell would be pleased.
Yeah,
I
it's
think you're
beautiful.
absolutely right, Susanna. For those of us who got to know him over these years, this was a special time just to remember and reflect. And Jamie, you knew him for 30 plus years, so did I. He was always so blunt and honest and kind in trying to make sure that we were reporting accurate news.
Absolutely. And could I add mischievous and the big smile? But he always took time for young reporters. How can I help you? What do you need to know? A lot of people don't do that. He did that, and I think that's exactly what we've heard over and over about how he treated young soldiers. He was someone who reached out to people.
He was so special, John, in the military, and you covered him when he was visiting troops in Saudi Arabia just before Operation Desert Storm began, and he would reach out to those troops and make them feel better.
And he made them feel better because I think both the commander and General Hertling have mentioned it, because he lived a life and he learned the lessons, and he did not like that Vietnam was such a political war. And so anytime he came about the debates with Madeline
Colin
Albright,
Powell is an American story. It is a
right
quintessential American story. Vietnam.
That was the way he used the term, that because he lived it.
His immigrant
the respect
experience.
he was General Powell, he was Secretary Powell, but he remembered the privates. That was his mission. That with the opportunity of power comes privilege to remember the little guy.
You know, Jake, all of us are going to remember this funeral, but we're also, much more so, we're going to remember General Powell for the wonderful man that he was and what he did for our country, indeed, what he did for the world.
Indeed, Wolf. And one of the memories I have is in the obituary that we ran on my show the day that Powell's death was reported. There was an excerpt of a video address. He had a special scholarship fund for immigrant kids in New York. And he was doing it by Zoom. And I think his daughter, one of his daughters, was running the program. And he got very emotional listening to these incredibly impressive children of immigrants or immigrants themselves. And it really said a lot about what motivated him, in the sense that he never, this has been said so many times today, but he never forgot that he was, his early years were in Harlem. His parents were Jamaican immigrants. Then he spent time in the South Bronx. His dad had a winning lottery ticket, and then they got to move to Queens. He never forgot where he came from, and it wasn't just that he didn't forget it.
And CNN is doing really good coverage, by the way.
People like him as possible, and he was not necessarily destined for greatness as a kid. I mean, when he was in fourth grade, they talked about holding him back a little bit. But he just worked hard, and he wanted to reward those who followed in his footsteps.
Yeah, Jake, you bring up a great point.
CNN is
There's
actually
this
doing really
disease
good
that overcomes
coverage.
old generals. It's getting emotional when you see young people achieving things. It just talks to the future of America.
Mhm.
And I think, that's why Powell, at the end of his life, dedicated himself to the next
Service.
generation, to leadership, to finding the people that would perhaps bring us together after the great divide we've been through.
Mhm.
And that's what pleased him. He had accomplished everything possible in his life, but now it was to find ways to build that next generation, to build the bench that would pull it all together.
And Commander, you were talking about how as a young sailor and then to meet him ultimately. What was it like meeting him?
Yeah, so it's one of those things where
Oh,
you
no.
think
Did
you
I
know
press the
someone
wrong
because
button
you read so
now?
much about them and you see them on
And it's
TV.
not working.
To remind folks of who they are, and he was very
Right,
unassuming.
sorry about
because
that.
His life spoke for him.
Live!
His morals, his principles spoke for him. And I will tell you, I left and I immediately called my mom to tell her that I'd never guess who we had lunch with.
Thank you all so much for
And
watching.
she bought me his book before I left for Officer Candidate School. And I still remember dog-earing pages and highlighting. It's quite an incredible experience. And not to say that, not to deify the man. I mean, he was a man, but because he was tangible, because he accomplished things without being this Superman.
Intimidating.
Made everything he accomplished even more
He's right.
special. And the last thing I'll say is, when he walked through new doors, he didn't let the door swing back
He
to the
opened
next
them.
person behind him. He knocked the door off the hinges
Boom.
so that there was a pathway for those who followed behind him.
Yep,
And that
this is
will be
true.
one of his many legacies he leaves behind.
Yep.
Colin Powell saw the best and the worst of our country. He's very honest about that in his autobiography. And yet he remained optimistic. He was a reluctant warrior, and that meant not simply using force, but being political. But he would intervene when he felt it was necessary for the American family. And in the last few years, he's intervened a little bit more to remind us that we can be a family and we can work together. And his optimism was undaunted. And I hope we remember that example.
He also used to tell soldiers that you have to understand politics if you want to be
So thank you all so much for watching and tuning in. Please put in the comments your thoughts on Colin Powell. I've already said this multiple times that I understand the weapons of mass destruction. It's horrible. But I also think that Colin Powell's arc, his legacy, his hero journey includes that. I won't say it's bigger than that, but includes that, but also includes a lot that a lot of these other people,
for example, in the Bush administration, but
don't have as their aftertaste, right? Like
we say the cliche now, a man full.
I argue that Colin Powell has a bigger legacy than Obama. Obama's a symbol, but Colin Powell actually, again, I got a fellowship from him. Again, I'm not saying this to be selfish. I'm saying that I know firsthand his level of joy and dedication
to his knees and singing and have a song.
Empowering the next generation.
Driving the car backwards down the highway when he screwed up the car. So that too was just such a great takeaway. Here he was, this man, many accomplishments in a military bearing, but also of play and fun and real joy and optimism about life.
And I like the reminder that he didn't start out headed for West Point. He said many times, I couldn't have gotten into West Point because his grades weren't that great. He was an enlisted man. And that is, whether it's in the military or in any other walk of life, it's a reminder that you don't have to find yourself early. And you can do it late. You can be a late bloomer.
Yeah.
And still succeed.
Boom.
In a really robust way.
That's beautiful.
It's a great American success story.
Yes, he is.
Powell would often say his story was only possible in the United States of America. We have lost a statesman. We have lost an icon. The world is a slightly sadder and emptier place today. Thank you for joining us for our special coverage.
Thank you.
General Colin Powell's funeral at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. The news continues next with Allison Cambrata and Victor Blackwell after this break. Stay with us.
Yeah, so whew. But Marley was saying,
when you get a chip in your windshield,
half the story has never been told. But now we see the lights. Stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight. And that's called it. Yep. With it all, you know. And again, I'm an anti-war, you know, activist, right? So why is this Black woman crying for a self-professed Republican? Like, it is the most bizarre intersection of hypocrisy I have ever occupied, right? And again, these tears are not because in a selfish way I'm like, well, I'm the beneficiary of this man, so fuck what you heard, fuck all those haters, you know, shut up about the weapons of mass destruction. He good with me. Not saying that either, right? Again, I'm nuanced perspectives of understanding and comprehending, distilling, all of it. And so this is not about muting or mitigating any one particular aspect of who Colin Powell is. What I'm saying is this is an invitation to think about all of it, to think deeply and deeper about the implications of who we are, the choices we make, and what we do with our time on earth that we have. So that's that. So that's why this Black woman, who is an activist and unapologetically Black, is crying profusely about, you know, what some people could call a war criminal, what some people could call, you know, a military man, which is still problematic to me, and what I would call the quintessential American story. Thank you for tuning in. Black Issues. You can support my page with all of my merchandise. I don't have the tambourine yet. Not yet. But I do have mugs for sale. Black Ache. What is it now? This is the original logo, Black Issues. This is me drinking my chocolate here. There's also solutions to those issues, right? Everyone's personal favorite is either Blurgent, being Black and urgent about issues, or the Blackulator, calculating racial oppression for 400 years. So all that to say, I love you all Black, and be well. The quintessential American story. Canadian holder, Black issues, the logo. There, I'm trying to point at it, but bam. There you go. Thank you all so much for watching and tuning in. Love you all Black. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.